Thank you. Dear colleagues, sorry I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for today, but first of all I have to highlight that I am very happy that I'm here again among the friends. I have to highlight that the huge event held in September this year with more than 200 postgraduate students is something, in my opinion, of the greatest achievement of the Central European Academy until today. Of course, we saw that we have a lot of another achievement, but this is something which is really the future, which proves that the whole concept of the Central European Academy is really a positive, constructive, and strategic in its essence. And of course, my title on the 25th anniversary of Serbia's European integration is not in a proper sense right. Why? Because maybe I should say better towards the 25th anniversary of Serbia's European integration, because if we talk precisely, the first document signed between Serbia and between Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and EU was in 2000, in that year. So next year will be 25th anniversary of some kind of informal and formal process of European integration of Serbia. Exactly formally, that process started at the beginning of 2014. But in another way, I have to stress some prehistory of that process, because the second Yugoslavia, Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, was a very important international factor and kind of a link between the West and East. And because of that, it established diplomatic relations with the European community as early as the 60th of the 20th century. So this process in its origin is not really new, but we cannot make an equation between Serbia and Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was a rather big state at that moment. After that, in 70s, entered into serious economic and political crisis and vanished in a civil war. Serbia inherited in legal subjectivity that country, but it inherited also a lot of very realistic and objective problems of that big state. There was, as you know, civil war in the ex-Yugoslavia, then international sanctions for Federal Republic Yugoslavia, especially Serbia, then the war on Kosovo and Metohija, then the NATO aggression against Yugoslavia, i.e. Serbia in 1999. So the process was, the destiny of the European integration process of Serbia was to be started more late than in other countries of the region. And ultimately, Serbia had to first resolve the basic issues, so its sovereignty and territorial integrity, in order to create the minimum elementary conditions for initiating the process of European integration. And the first step was the adoption of the new constitution from 2006, which had and has an apparent inconsistency in its preamble. It refers, quotation, to state tradition of the Serbian people and the equality of all citizens and ethnic communities in Serbia, but gives a central place to the to Kosovo and Metohija as an integral part of the territory of Serbia, which has substantial autonomy within the sovereign state of Serbia. This results in the constitutional obligation of all state bodies to represent and protect the state and interests of Serbia in Kosovo and Metohija in all internal and external political relations. Therefore, this preamble unequivocally defines the basic elements of the national constitutional identity. On the other hand, in the Article 1st of the Constitution, among other things, this article proclaims the commitment of Serbia to European principles and values. And that apparent inconsistency, I called it apparent inconsistency because I don't think that the protection of sovereignty or territorial integrity is in contradiction with European principles and values. It is maybe in contradiction with some EU principles and values or the principles and values of some, of course, dominantly by numbers states of European Union, but not of the Europe as such. So I think that nowadays we have to more pay attention on this, if I can say, the line of demarcation between Europe as an identity, as a concept, and the European Union as economical and political concept, which has, in my opinion, a lot of bad sides, a lot of inconsistencies, and a lot of work to do in the future in order to reform itself to be more independent and more autonomous. And if we are talking about Serbia, I think that this statement of mine is also could be easily proved if we go a little bit deeper in the process of the European integration of Serbia. For example, Slobodan Samardžić, a good expert on the EU and the process of European integration in Serbia, and the former politician, says, the process itself has become so complex and uncertain that nobody could predict its flow or its outcome. After all, in the framework document for accession, it is specifically stated that opening the talks does not guarantee either the achievement of the final goal or durability of the process. So both players, the EU and Serbia, but also their mutual relations, have become substantially different in comparison to the beginning of the century. And in line with this statement, we can see that after the breakup of Yugoslavia, not the big, the small Yugoslavia and all those civil wars during the 90s, new political criteria were defined for the countries of the Western Balkans. For example, respect for peace agreements, full cooperation with the International Criminal Court in The Hague, and cooperation with neighboring countries, regional cooperation. But for Serbia, another extra condition, normalization of relations with Kosovo. These conditions, although it became clear very quickly what it could mean, is characterized by nominally great vagueness and ambivalence. And it was this condition that made the European integration of Serbia a sui generis process. What is even more important, it completely changed the nature of that process by making it predominantly political and turning it into a political juggling for the realization of current and partial political interests. The process, however, lost its strategic character, I think, and because of that, the legal analysis of this process is important, but it should be taken with a lot of reserves, precautions, and as someone already told today, we have to analyze this process, not only the European integration process of Serbia, but all of Western Balkans countries, and the process of enlargement as such, with more in a more complex and sensitive way. So it is not a legal process anymore. When we see the new report for Serbia in 2024, we see that from the legal point of view, nothing has substantially changed in comparison with some previous years, in comparison with the beginning of the process. It couldn't be possible. For example, we made good changes, constitutional amendments in relation to judiciary, and a lot of laws in that respect, and sub-laws also. It is mentioned, but somewhere by side, somewhere as something which is already done, but it is nothing special anymore. But how to reach that of course, obviously more important goals, those goals which are obviously in its absence political. One line is obviously related to de facto and de jure recognition of Kosovo by Serbia. And that is obviously something which was the goal defined before the official, the starting of official negotiation process with Serbia, and it started with the first Brussels agreement in 2013, which it is very interesting maybe for you to see, to hear. The exact name of that agreement was the first agreement on principles governing the normalization of relations, without specifying which relations, who are the parties in that relationship. The normalization of relations certainly did not refer to the parties that initialized the agreement, the EU and Serbia, and the normalization of relations, of course, concerned Serbia and Kosovo. From the point of view of the Constitution of Serbia, this meant that Serbia establishes, that is, normalizes relations with itself, or rather that the state entity treats its component part as a separate and equal entity. And I can say that the first Brussels agreement, with its very vague and ambivalent character, in a way transferred the further fate of the European integration process of Serbia. In the coming years, it will become obvious that the further disintegration of Serbia is a necessary but not sufficient condition for its European integration. And how about the dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo? You all heard about this phrase, dialogue between those two parties. This dialogue substantially does not exist. And of course, it does not exist because Serbia practically fulfilled all its obligations from the Brussels agreements. And Kosovo did not even its once and only to form the Association of Serbian Municipalities in the north of Kosovo. And the second important agreement I'm talking about in this excerpt of my article is the Brussels Ohrid Agreement of 2023, but I think that it is a document which, fortunately or unfortunately, it depends from which perspective we are looking at that document, that it is a dead letter. It is a try to encourage dialogue, and it is also a document this time signed by not signed but named as agreement on the path to normalization between Kosovo and Serbia. And in the spirit of Anglo-Saxon political and legal methodology and phraseology, there is plenty of room for broader and ambivalent interpretations again. So The Brussels-Ohrid agreement is for each party, I mean Serbia on the one hand, Kosovo on the other hand, and the EU on the third hand, because in my opinion, EU is not a moderator in this process. It has been considering the new geopolitical situation after the start of the war in Ukraine. It has become the most subjectively interested party. And though all those parties are looking to this agreement on this way. For example, the EU looks at this agreement as a last step on the way to reaching a comprehensive, legally binding agreement on the normalization of relations between Serbia and Kosovo. Kosovo authorities, with or without Albin Kurti, has its own goal, which is rather simple, to define itself completely as a sovereign state with international legal subjectivity. And for Serbia, this agreement causes a rather difficult position with a rather complex position. There are a lot of factors which should be analyzed. I will, for example, mention only two. The first factor is constitutional. The Constitution of Serbia of 2006 does not recognize Kosovo, but Kosovo and Metohija as an autonomous province. That autonomous province should enjoy substantial autonomy, and this should be regulated by constitutional law, i.e. by the law that will be adopted according to the procedure for changing the constitution. If the idea of substantial autonomy of Kosovo and Metohija were revived at one point, that law would have to be confirmed in a referendum with an absolute majority. The same procedure, however, would be necessary if Serbia were to remove the Republic of Kosovo from its constitutional preamble. And that issue for the vast majority of Serbian citizens, although many are aware that Serbia has long had no de facto sovereignty over Kosovo and Metohija, is not a question of territory. It is an identity issue. And it would not be possible to change the constitution of Serbia according to the procedure provided for in the constitution in a referendum, because a convincing majority would be against it. And for example, I listed several factors, but for example, the fifth final sector in that my list is is related to the emergence of new geopolitical relations characterized by a network of different highly influential power centers on all of four sides of the world. Both the EU and Kosovo are, especially Kosovo, are the creations of the world order that is disappearing. If it wants to survive and establish itself as one of the centers of global influence, the EU will have to reform its identity. So this reform should be in depth, not in procedure, not in some formal structure, not even in institutional reform. It should be identity reform. What is exactly the EU now, and especially what it should be or want to be in the future. And over the time, Kosovo will lose the importance it had during the unipolar order at the turn of the 2 centuries. Its role has already been spent. That is why Kosovo is in a hurry. And in my opinion, Serbia is not in such a hurry. The European path is still a priority of Serbia's foreign policy, but membership is not the ultimate goal. Serbia has adapted to the nature of the process. The goal is far more complex than EU membership. In the complex aspects of that goal, further strengthening of the rule of law and human rights, strengthening of economic ties with the EU, and participation in the development of modern technologies are high on political agenda. That is for sure. And if I can conclude in just a few words, I could say that Serbia is on the European path as much as the EU allows and wants. But I have to stress once again here in Hungary, in EU, that I strongly stay with my statement that EU is definitely not an autonomous and independent political authority in today global works. No, it has ever been, exactly. And in the meantime, the foreign politics of Serbia is it's strengthening its ties to all four corners of the world. And to be patient, persistent, consistent with its dominantly or predominantly legal argumentation. Is Serbia on the European path, or is it going in some other direction? That path was unequivocally never evolution and most likely never will be. The nature of this process is quite different and is not easy to define. Can we expect a dissolution or rather definitive departure from that path? This is neither a realistic nor a wise option for Serbia, but it is neither a wise option for the EU. Thank you.